Good afternoon, everyone. We are so happy to see so many people joining us this afternoon. I know it's always a busy time. I want to say happy Veterans Day and thank all of our veterans. My name is Rachel Lieberman. I am a director here at the Celiac Disease Center. I am so excited to be joined here today by a fabulous crew of people. But first, I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Lindsay Yakel, who is our educational coordinator, who is fantastically put together today's program, as well as Dr. Ritu Verma, who is our medical director and also chief of gastroenterology here at Comer Children's. And we could not do this without Dr. Verma. So we are so appreciative that she is taking time. I want to encourage everyone, please stay on mute. Today's program is recorded. So for any reason you want to go back, re-listen to information, please do so. Or if you have to get cut off for any reason, please know this will be recorded. We will send out the recording. It is also posted on our YouTube channel. And I want you all to take a minute and focus on the bottom of your screen. There is a Q&A function as well as the chat. Our Q&A function, we would love if you could utilize that to put your questions in and ideas of what you would like to be addressed as our speakers are speaking. And we have an amazing jam-packed hour. So I want to get to it. I am so excited to introduce our first and keynote speaker of the day. Andrea Tucker is with us. She is a health educator, celiac advocate, and founder of Gluten-Free College 101, a community that is for parents of gluten-free students looking for information and support in the college process. Andrea also had founded Baltimore Gluten-Free. She's been a great friend to the celiac community. We are so excited to have her speak to us first today. So again, I'm going to just remind everyone, please utilize that Q&A function. Andrea is going to present, and then we have some amazing students who are going to be part of a really meaningful panel discussion with Andrea and Dr. Verma after this. So stay tuned. But Andrea, I would love to welcome you. And we are so happy to have you today.
Oh, thank you so much. That was lovely. And thank you everybody here today for spending part of your Saturday with us. I'm hopeful that you get a lot of good information from today. Also, let's keep the conversation going. We'll give ways to stay connected. Of course, I'm looking forward to the Q&A and some good discussion. So let us get started. Again, I am so thrilled to be here. I love all the work that the center has done through the years. So this is truly an honor. So what I want to focus on today is a few mistakes that I've heard people make through the years and through working with the college community and with families getting ready to go through this process, obviously, and how to avoid them. And I really want you to hopefully walk away with some ideas, obviously, of what not to do, but with some tools and resources as well. So again, how to avoid them and what to know about what to do so your student will thrive, or if you are a student, that you will walk away with some inspiration as well. If you care to share in the chat, I'd love to hear what grade you're in if you are a student, or if you're a parent, what grade your student's in. It's always kind of cool to get a sense of, where people are in their high school career or even their college career. So I just want to assure everyone here, if you feel any of these things, you are not alone. The college process is just that, a huge process, even without having to deal with dietary restrictions. It is a bear. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, completely normal. A lot of times, especially when it comes to dealing with this process with a dietary restriction or celiac disease, it's especially overwhelming. We don't know where to start, who to turn to get reliable information. A lot of it is conflicting. It is just tough. We might feel confused. Again, we might hear anecdotally something about a school, and then a website may say something different. We, again, might get information from one source that contradicts another. A lot of times that leads to frustration. Why isn't this easier? Why isn't there something, a roadmap, something that can make this process easier for those of us who have to navigate it with celiac or non-celiac gluten sensitivity? So just a second about me. As Rachel mentioned, I'm a health educator by profession. My family has been gluten-free for 13 years now. I also have a teen who has celiac, and I've been working with families for almost 13 years. I founded a group for kids called Cell Kids here in Baltimore. I've worked with the University of Maryland Celiac Center, and I have a group for adults, a gluten-free meetup group. And as the kids in the Cell Kids group were getting older, of course, and getting into the college process, I started to hear some common themes come up. Those feelings of frustration and overwhelm, confusion, of course. And, of course, it started percolating. And in the meantime, I did get certified in Great Kitchens, which is a Beyond Celiac program. But what really catapulted me into this even further focus in the celiac community was an email I got from a mother who was completely distraught. So I live in Baltimore, and one morning I opened up my inbox and I had an email from someone I didn't know, and her daughter was attending college here in Baltimore. And she was so upset. So her daughter was a freshman, and she just was not finding anything that she could eat at school. A couple times she had gotten glutened, and this mother had found me on the internet, searched obviously Baltimore gluten-free, and I came up and just was essentially begging me for help. And what she wanted, first of all, was to know, would I bring her daughter some safe meals? And obviously, as a parent myself, as a parent of someone with celiac, I was just as upset as she was. So I cooked her some meals. Our house is gluten-free. I brought them to her, and over the course of the next couple of weeks, started to really deconstruct what had happened. How did her daughter end up at this school where she could not eat? She couldn't eat safely. And as I started to deconstruct this, of course, we came in contact with other families at the school that were going through the same thing. So I proceeded to help them as well, and tried to advocate with the school to make some changes. But just to give you a sense of what kind of kicked this all off. So, and that's a pretty upsetting story, I know, and especially, as a parent to hear that. But I really do want to let you know that there are places where you can thrive, where our students can thrive, where they can, be successful at school, have good, safe, varied meals, and do well academically and socially and otherwise. And that's what I hope for everyone, that you have the feeling, if you're a student, that when you move in, or if you're a parent, when you drop your student off on move-in day, that you're leaving them in a good space, in a good place, equipped with what they need, with what you need to thrive in college. And it can happen. It really can. It is possible. So let's get into the mistakes, and then I'll give you some resources. So the first mistake I see often is not researching a school beyond their website, or what an admissions counselor says, or maybe a tour guide says. So as we know, a school's website can be a first step in learning about a school. And some schools will have information about their offerings, about their culinary offerings, about dining, maybe even a little bit about allergen safe offerings, special dietary considerations. Just a reminder that websites are sometimes not kept up to date. Sometimes things change at the school and the site doesn't reflect that, but also to keep in mind that these are marketing tools. So you want to look at that through the lens of being a marketing tool. As well, admission counselors, in my experience, typically don't have a ton of information about dietary offerings. And if they do, it's very surface level. So again, if you're getting or talking about, what gluten-free options or support you might get on campus with an admissions counselor, just look at that as really a preliminary step, as well as a tour guide. Now, when we go on college tours, obviously it's a great place to connect with current students, the tour guide leading the tour, maybe some other students that you bump into along the way. But keep in mind, again, I've had this experience personally, and then other students mentioned that, maybe they ask the tour guide, hey, do you know how the gluten-free offerings, or do you know anybody and who might be gluten-free? And they'll typically, you might get a yes, and you might hear that things are good or they can eat. But I've found that really getting that information that we need is not typically happening through there. Again, fine to ask, but just keeping in mind that we need to dig deeper, as we always do. What we can really count on is that doing this vetting well and thoroughly takes time. So as much as possible, give yourself that time. Start early. If you've got a college list going, start to dig a little deeper with those schools, and I'll give you some resources to do that. If you can do it before you make a college list, great. My advice always is that finding out information about a dining program is one data point that you want to use when you're either making a college list or picking a school. So typically, maybe you have 5 top priorities when you're picking a school. Maybe it's geographic location, size, whether they've got the academic interests that you're interested in, the dining program, and whatever else the other might be, the culture, selectivity, that type of thing. But you really want this data set to be robust, and that does take time. So this is just an example. Elizabeth I worked with when she was a junior, and it was great because she really became practiced at this researching, digging down further than this front-facing information that we talked about. Again, factoring in that extra time, and I'm going to give you some tools. Mistake number 2 is not connecting with the Office of Disability Services. This office can go by a couple of different names. Sometimes it's Disability Services Office, Abilities Access Office, it can Student Services, it can go by a couple different names, but this is a really critical office. Anyone who knows me knows that I think that it's as important as dining. And when you're investigating a school, you want to check out this office. You want to make sure that they really understand celiac and gluten-free. A lot of times these offices are familiar with traditional disabilities, blindness, deafness, mobility types of issues, but those invisible types of things, these, chronic diseases that are invisible, things that really do need accommodation, some schools aren't as familiar with. And how this makes a difference is you really want to make sure that you get accommodations before you start. And I really recommend this. So it's super important to find out about this office. You want to connect with them. They're your internal support. Those are our internal advocates. So these staff people would be the person we would reach out to if, for example, you got an accommodation, say you were glutened and you needed an extension on a deadline for an assignment, and that was in your accommodations. And you, for some reason, either a professor didn't follow through with that, whatever, they would be the person you would turn to get some advice, to get some support, make sure that accommodations were being followed through. So really important. And I'm doing some data collection with my group that we're trying to get information on these disability services office at various schools throughout the country to really give people a sense of this. You really want them to understand gluten-free. And I have a list of questions that I'm going to share with everybody that you can use to ask with dining, with disability, that'll give you a sense of how much they understand. So accommodations fall into these general categories: housing, dining, and academics. I recommend getting as many accommodations upfront as possible. You may never need them, but it's so much easier to get them upfront than when you're in the middle of something. So you want to make yourself official. You want to register with this office, and you want to feel comfortable with them. So that's why talking to them ahead of time, it can be over Zoom or a phone call too, is really important. You want to feel like this is somebody you can reach out to, and you don't feel like a burden. Mistake number 3, not considering the town, city, area where your college is located. So this can make a big difference. I know I mentioned in a few minutes ago, the parent that reached out to me whose daughter just couldn't eat at college. So this is a picture of the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. So while the school was not very accommodating at all for the gluten-free diet, and the area is, and that helped. It doesn't totally correct what the school wasn't able to provide, but it helps. So in Baltimore, in the area of the school in particular, lots of great grocery stores. I mean, really great for getting your hands on gluten-free items. We have dedicated gluten-free eateries that were pretty accessible to the area too, which is important. And you want to know that too. What is happening in the area? Are there places to eat off campus? Because that's where you'll be going to socialize, meet friends. Obviously, you can order food at times too, but it's really important to check that out. So when you're visiting schools, make sure you eat in the area as well. As well, we want to check out if there's medical care in the vicinity. You know, a lot of us have other things going on besides celiac or non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Are there, is there good medical support in the area? So all things to keep in mind. So mistake number 4, not asking the right questions. And by right, I mean just not specific enough or enough questions. And again, I have this list. I'll put the link to get the list of questions in the chat. And as well, Lindsay will be sending out in the recap email the link too. So really want to get specific so that you get that information you need. And this is going to go into that data set that I mentioned, so that at the end of the day, when you're either making a decision or even making a list, you can kind of compare what you've found out. Just in the interest of time, this is a little audio clip from Elizabeth, but I'm going to skip through this because I want to make sure I give everybody their time. Definitely will make sure I get this list to everyone. And mistake number 5 is not being prepared to self-advocate. So even in the best of situations, as we know, we're going to have to self-advocate at times. And this takes practice. So when we leave home, I mean, typically we've got things down to a science, have our food, we have people looking out for us, that type of thing. We're going to have to take the reins a bit when we're in college. Colleges look at students as adults. They want them to be the ones that self-advocate, that reach out. Not that us as parents can't be involved, but they really want students to take that position. So as much as we can practice, the better. And I have some really good strategies from current and past college students that have made that easier, whether it's with college staff or with friends or with roommates, that type of thing. And, at the baseline, have a little elevator pitch ready so that when you're in a situation and it catches you off guard where you have to explain to somebody maybe why you're not eating or why you're bringing your own food, or they're asking you a question about something, it'll just roll off your tongue. I brought my own pizza because I have celiac disease. If I have even a crumb of gluten, I get really sick. So anything along those lines so that you don't even have to think about it. You've kind of got it ready to go. Again, colleges are looking for us to advocate for ourselves. So I know I'm coming up on time, but I did want to go through and please stay connected. We have a great Facebook group for parents called Gluten-Free College 101. I will put the link for the questions in the chat, and I have a website, glutenfreecollege.com. If you're not on Facebook, I have a newsletter that goes out. But some of the questions, and I'll just take a minute, are things for dining. For example, you want to ask specifically, are there hot meals prepared? Some schools, some of the options don't even include hot meals. You want to make sure that's included. Ask for an example of a menu for a month. You want to see what they're serving. Obviously, if you're visiting a school, try to get into the dining halls, eat there if possible too. Be like a secret shopper, look around, see how things are laid out. Are you serving yourself? Is someone serving you? What are they serving? Is this something you would eat? So get a sample menu. Do you order meals online ahead of time, or do you have the option to just show up and get a meal? Different schools have different procedures that way. You can ask what their prep is. They have separate prep areas for cross-contact protocols, labeling, ingredient labeled. Also, you want to ask about, and I won't go through all of them, but the training for staff, and then what's open on the weekend. Sometimes some schools, unfortunately, close dining halls on the weekend. You want to make sure that there's something available that has gluten-free offerings on the weekend, so you're not wondering trying to find something to eat. And find out the hours for those places that have safe foods. Also, find out, are there any grab-and-go options available? A lot of schools have convenience stores. Check those out. See if you can use your dining swipes or dollars there, and what do they have? Are there convenience foods that you can grab? Sometimes you're in a rush. Sometimes you don't have much time. Is there something you can get quickly? And you want to make sure, too, that there's some options across campus. And then lastly, and I've skipped a few, but you do want to ask too, are there any councils or opportunities for students to be involved in menu planning? And sometimes with small schools, they are very flexible and they take a lot of student input. If you request a meal or a product, they'd be happy to do it. Sometimes there'll be things like councils where you can be a part of that and make suggestions. And then I have questions for disability services as well. But that is really what I wanted to share. Of course, let's continue talking today and beyond. I'll put the link in the chat, and I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say and what questions you might have. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was great. And I know that Lindsay will also be sending some of Andrea's tips. And I want to reiterate that this is recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. But we also have a resource guidebook called our InTransit guidebook. And there's an entire section that Dr. Verma wrote on heading to college, what to do when you're touring, what to do once you've committed, and then what to do once you're an actual student, kind of in 3 buckets. And I hope that we can address some of those tips along the way during our Q&A. But I love to see I want to encourage everyone, please put questions in our Q&A function. And I want to just walk through really quickly what we're going to do for the rest of our time together. So we are going to have three different student perspectives share really quickly their own journeys and paths and where they are. One is a junior in college who we will see a short video in a second. One is a freshman in college who just recently went through the experience of looking at schools. And then we also have a junior in high school. And with that, they will serve on our panel, as well as Andrea and Dr. Verma. And we are really hoping we can address, so put in your questions to our parents, and just know that, you know, our biggest philosophy here at the Celiac Disease Center is that we are here to support you. You can do anything. You can go to school. And as Andrea noted, there are just some steps to take ahead of time to ensure that you have, you know, gotten all the information that you possibly need. But I don't want to speak anymore until our Q&A. But what I would love to do is introduce Elise Azulay. She is a wonderful student. She is a junior at University of Wisconsin. And she spent some time with us at the Celiac Disease Center last summer. She is awesome. And she couldn't be with us today, but she wanted to share a video of her experiences, not only in the dorm, but also living off campus. So, Lindsay, I'm going to turn it over to you to play Elise's quick video.
Okay. Pulling it up. Hi, my name is Elise Azulay. I'm a junior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I also have celiac disease. Coming to college, I was definitely nervous about having celiac because I didn't really know, where was going to be good for me to eat, how the dining hall was, snacks, the works. But for me, Wisconsin made it really easy. They, at their dining hall, had everything marked. Even then, the gluten-free food was not the greatest, and so I was able to go to the store and get things and have like tons of snacks, breakfast I would have at my dorm. Telling my friends about it was super easy. Anytime we would go out to eat, I would always just check the menu if need be, and if it didn't work, we would go somewhere else or we'd figure something out. I think, a really big piece of advice is like making sure that like the people that you find in college and your friends are open to it and kind of are accepting, because celiac, it's part of you, but it doesn't have to define you. And I think that's super important. And then now the past 2 years, I've been living in an apartment, which is super nice because I have a kitchen and I'm able to cook lots of different things, all of which are gluten-free. There's cabinets, there's like space to put also all the like crazy gluten-free snacks that I get, because of course, when I see anything that's gluten-free, I have to grab it. And I also think in terms of going out, as long as you know what you can and can't have, what you feel comfortable with, it's more so just like learning those boundaries. And I think it comes with college, but celiac, again, it doesn't have to define you. It's just a part of you. And so, figuring out what you can eat. And when you can find crazy good gluten-free things, it's all for the better. Like Madison is a gluten-free bakery that someone who I work with brought me a baked good from. And so it's small things like that you can find in your college town or wherever you go to school that are just the best. And then last piece of advice, for those who are going through the college admission process, kind of pay attention, ask questions about what's gluten-free, Google, look up, find me gluten-free, kind of make sure that there's things. I feel like at this point a lot know, but it is important to, look ahead so you're not like blindsided when you get there. And it is an adjustment, but so is college, and it all ends up working out.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay, for playing that. Elise is great. And that was a great clip of just some good advice. And I feel like, again, you're going to hear some themes from Andrea, from Elise. You're going to hear from Natalie in a minute. And it's just common, lots of information, asking questions, and being flexible, but doing your research. So I am so excited to introduce Natalie Soler, who is a freshman at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And Natalie is one of our founding members of our InTransit teen program, which we started a couple of years ago. And we are so excited to see Natalie thriving. And I would love for Natalie to kind of share her path how she found a school, and just even college visits, because I got to meet her on one of her college visits at U Chicago. Just how she approached things and tips for our guests with us today. So, Natalie, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Natalie Soler. I'm currently attending Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is in upstate New York, Troy area. It's by Albany. Not really, but kind of. Um, so yeah, the way I generally went about my college process as someone with celiac disease is I went on so many campus tours, all the campus tours I could, because I knew that I had to engage with the community itself to be able to get a good perspective on how the food services actually worked. As you know, when you're a freshman, a lot of schools require you to have dining hall access, and that's just a requirement. So you need to know if the dining hall will be able to provide you with safe gluten-free food that's not cross-contaminated and all of that stuff. So speaking with your dietitian, of course, that's an amazingly important thing to get off your bucket list right off the bat, but also interacting with the dining staff employees, the dining hall employees, because they are the people who will actually be preparing your stuff. So getting to speak with them, getting to figure out how they work with the food, how they put it out, because sometimes that can lead to cross contamination too. But generally, my process for going on campus tours was really successful. A lot of schools nowadays are showing great promise with learning how to deal with cross contamination, specifically for gluten-free foods and even dairy-free things like that. Generally, everything was really, really awesome and exciting for me because I was getting to go to college and feel super normal about having celiac disease and eating things that other people might not necessarily have. Um, so I remember for one school, they had completely different like tools and materials to cook things yourself. Like I made my first gluten-free waffles with a waffle iron dedicated for gluten-free waffles. So that was super cool and awesome. I loved that so much. That was actually my first pick for school. But now that I'm here, I'm realizing just how awesome each individual school operates. For instance, here we have simple servings food stations where everything is free of the top 9 allergens. A lot of schools have stations like that as well, and I've found that to be the source of most of my meals because it's so reliable and the food is usually delicious. It's awesome. Hot food is always a comfort because you don't feel like you're making it yourself and you're just in your dorm. You actually go out there and eat with other students, and that's awesome. Um, Another thing that my school provides is a room where students can cook themselves if they have dietary restrictions. So there's solely gluten-free and dairy-free food in there, peanut-free, and that's really, really amazing because it's completely blocked off from anybody who does not get accommodations for it. So there's no worrying. It's really awesome. And I'm really glad that I was able to learn about that because of the campus tours I went on early on. I didn't know about Rensselaer initially in my college search, but by my senior year, when I was just going out there and doing all my tours, I could see that it was a really standout place. And I didn't know exactly that this was where I was going to end up, but I'm glad that I did end up here, and I'm really happy.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. I have so many questions for you. I want to hear more about your experience. And we thank you. And again, want to encourage everyone to put questions for Natalie in our Q&A function as well from a student perspective if you have any questions. And our last person we would love to invite to share her experience is on the very beginning end of looking at schools. So Ainsley DeRosa is another member of our InTransit group. We are so happy to have her. She's a current junior in high school and is just starting her search for schools. And Ainsley, I just thought we'd invite you on to share a little bit as you are reaching out to schools, setting up tours. How are you going about things? Because she's already starting so early. So it's awesome having her a part of things. And Ainsley, we'd love to have you share your experience so far.
Yeah, so as Rachel said, I'm pretty early in the process, and I would say that the philosophy I've kind of adopted in terms of as I'm looking at schools is, since the college process is so new to me, something I'm unfamiliar with, comparing it to something I am familiar with, like trying to choose a restaurant. So when you go out to like choose a restaurant, you definitely want to, you like, if you use Find Me Gluten-Free, you want to talk to people who also have celiac disease, know what it's like, and then also like the staff of that restaurant. So to compare it to the college process, like talking to the dining hall staff and talking to people who are gluten-free about their experience, I would say that's definitely what I've been trying to do the most. This summer I did a program at a college in Michigan, and I was promised that there would be lots of gluten-free options, and got there and there really weren't. It was pretty disappointing, but it was the dining hall staff that really like were able to prepare my food for me special and make it a good experience for me. So making connections with those people is important, I would say. And then also, as Natalie kind of mentioned, that she saw that so many schools had options. Really don't try to choose your school based on the food, and based on like the fact that you have celiac disease. I would say to try to, even though it might be more work, just make it work wherever you end up, wherever has the best programs for you.
That's great. Thank you, Ainsley. I loved your metaphor of like comparing it to a restaurant. It really is similar in some ways. And what I would love to do is invite Andrea and Natalie and Ainsley, stay where you are, to come on, still on camera, and Dr. Verma. If you want to come on camera and take yourselves off mute, I would love, Andrea, I know you're very busy answering all these questions, and I'm going to still revisit some of these while we're doing our Q&A right now. So what I would love to do is, Dr. Verma, I'm going to invite you first, if you don't mind. And I would love if you could cover just the top 3 things you've heard people speak today, some of our students, and as well as Andrea, and share the top 3 things you want every college inbound student to know.
So thank you very much. First of all, excellent. It's lovely to hear. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist, so it's always lovely to hear from the children. And Natalie, you're still a child. And of course, it's good to hear from an experienced person like Andrea. So I'll tell you, and I have 2 children who have celiac disease as well, and gone through a college, multiple colleges, experiences, and so on. So in my opinion, I think the first thing is to really have an opinion from the young person, from the child himself or herself. What do you really want to do in life? What is it your life mission in college? And what do you want to get out of college? I think that's most important thing, more than the food and more than anything else. Where is the best college for you in terms of what you want to do in life? That's the primary goal, is where we need the children to be excited that they're in a college because they're going to do what makes them enjoy life, what makes them feel like they're good citizens in this world, not based on the food. As I heard one of our young people say, celiac is not your identity. It's something else. It's something you've got to live with. I loved that phrase. So I think asking the children, sitting down with your children and kind of going through that topic of what do you want to do, and then make a list of your colleges, and then you can decide on the food. Because again, I think that should be maybe not the primary concern. The primary is, what does your child want to do? And then I would also say to the children that you have to apply for that disability office. As my son told me, you've always told me, Mom, that this disease should not bring me down, and now you're telling me to sign up for a disability office. I think we have to explain to our children that this is the way the world is. In order to get your accommodations, please fill up that form. And of course, if you as a child, now you are the one who has to fill that form out. So you've got to do that. And you've got to know their deadlines. There are deadlines to that every college. And there will be no college who's going to make an exception for you just because your mom or dad called them. So fill that form. Don't worry about it. It's a disability. Don't worry about it. Just fill the form and you'll get what you want. So that's sort of my spiel to was my spiel to my children, and it's a spiel to all of my patients who are my children as well. And I think it's to the parents, let your children be involved in this process. Let them guide you a little bit as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And Andrea, I would love to just direct one of our first, questions to you. And I see there is some back and forth on this. You talk a little bit about the letter, the documentation. Dr. Verma, you're going to address this too. And I'd love to hear from Natalie what your process was. But one of the first steps, as you said, is filling out a form and getting a letter from your doctor. Does it vary from your experience, Andrea, for schools, what they are requiring? And what advice would you give people who are starting that exact process? Let's start with that accommodation office.
Yeah, those are great questions. So a letter of diagnosis or validating a diagnosis is pretty standard for schools going through this process, the Disability Services Office, and getting accommodations. My recommendation is when you are getting close to picking a school, start to collect information about contact people, deadlines, that type of thing, just so you have a heads up and get that letter tight. So Dr. Verma, you're very well versed in this, but sometimes some people aren't working with a gastroenterologist or a gastroenterologist that really understands celiac disease and the implications it might have on things like their schoolwork or just in general. So I have worked with parents who have drafted their own letter and have the physician sign off on it. Pretty standard letter though. You want to, it'll describe what celiac is, maybe when someone was diagnosed, and then go through each of the accommodations and the justification for it. But again, that's pretty standard across the process. Other pieces can vary a little bit, and these offices vary a lot. So how much they really understand and how much documentation you need to provide can vary.
That's great. And Natalie, before I go to Dr. Verma, I'm just curious, what was the process? Did you work with the disability office in your school? And what was that process for you?
Yeah, I absolutely worked with the disability office. The disability office was really so pleasant. They were really flexible with me about my celiac and some other things I have to get at accommodations for. So that was really lovely. In terms of documentation, I know my situation was a little different because I have One Medical, which is like an online type of doctor service, medical service. And therefore it was easier to get the documentation. But as long as you have whatever your school individually requires, I am sure that things will work out. And honestly, having the student there to speak with a disability student services representative is really important so that you can communicate what you want out of your accommodations. Because let's say you do have celiac disease. One thing that happened for me that I wasn't even considering was failing to make test dates because in college those are far more strict than they might be in high school that for your specific situation. So I was told that, hey, if you get gluten, you can this will tell your teacher that this is an okay thing and you will be able to take the makeup date. And I was like, that is really important because if I don't do that, that'll be very bad for myself. So I am super glad that they were able to tell that to me and that I was able to get that accommodation. So yeah, just speaking with them really helps clear things up for yourself. And it's a really pleasant, it was a pleasant experience for me.
And Dr. Verma, I know that from my experience working with the center, and I would love to hear yours, while there may be some schools who are really good at things, I have got to believe, I mean, I know that's one of our philosophies is we should never not look at a school because you have celiac disease. And I want to encourage people that we're a team, your healthcare team is a team with you to help navigate working with your accommodation office, the disability office, and what you're looking for. And I think what people need is so individualized. But Dr. Verma, I'd love to hear your perspective of just the process of when you've worked with patients in the past. How have you been involved, and what would you recommend if people are following up with their doctors as they're part of this process, like with the disability office and documentation and everything? What advice would you have for families?
I think that, any chronic disease, and even if we go away from celiac disease itself, any chronic disease, the physicians will write a letter for accommodations. And I know from a celiac standpoint, I encourage all my patients at whatever level you are. So at school, it becomes a 504. So you have a 504 plan in the schools. It's the same thing. You have to send a letter to school. And the letter just says that you have a diagnosis of celiac disease. I think that's the key, that you have celiac disease, and then there's a blurb that what is celiac disease. And we have a standard letter, and Lindsay can share that with you as part of the information that is sent out after this webinar. So the letter is not something that a physician can say no to, because that's a chronic disease that you have. I do believe that any physician or practitioner is managing patients with chronic illnesses has to prepare the child and has to prepare the family of what's going to happen when you go to college. So one is you need this letter of chronic illness. You have a chronic illness, and what does it mean? Whether you have Crohn's disease or celiac disease or whatever, and what are the accommodations that you need? Again, Ainsley has that letter that there is from her school standpoint. So there is from a school and a 504. So that's part of it. Now, when you start your college in the disability office, one is, yes, you want to know about the food, but very important that you also meet with the dietitian. And that is part of what your office visit should be before you go to college. So I encourage that we actually have an office visit that is just discussion of college. It is not part of your rest of the, checking the labs and checking all that kind of stuff. And if your physician is not providing it, ask for it. Say, I am going to college and I would like to understand more about my disease if I have not understood, and I'd like to make an appointment in the office. And that is your privilege to ask for it. So ask for that. You get your letter at that time that you have celiac disease, or they send it in further. When you're in college or going for your tours, meet with the dietitian. It is also your legal right to ask that you meet with the dietitian, you meet with the chefs. It's important to meet all those people and, of course, tour the dining hall that you are doing, and sit down with your physician. What happens if I get gluten? Do I get vomiting? Do I get belly aches? Do I get brain fog? All that should be written in the letter and sent over to the disability office. But I would encourage everyone to set up the time if you haven't. And then, of course, the one other thing we also have, and we have the privilege of working with Lindsay in our center, is that Lindsay works with the families from a college standpoint, from a school standpoint, whether you're a 504 or a disability office, and helps you and guides you in terms of what are the questions and things that you should be asking if you haven't asked. And I know in the chat there were some, I was trying to look through some of the questions and also trying to answer, but it is your legal right to ask for that from a disability office. It is really important. And then there was a question about, can you get out of the meal plan? Well, most of the time you cannot get out of the meal plan, but you can have a change of meal plan. So there are some, schools and colleges that tell you you need a meal plan that you cannot, it's like the Cadillac of the meal plans, but you can definitely downgrade that meal plan if they cannot supply the gluten-free meals. Healthy gluten-free meals are not supplied. So you can definitely work with them. But Lindsay is a wealth of information and can help you with that as well.
Awesome. I'm so impressed by how many, our chat, everything is getting answered. It's amazing. And there's great dialogue happening. I just want to go to our Q&A really quickly.
One of the things that I've seen a couple of people ask here is for some suggestions on what kind of accommodations they may want to consider making. Somebody said, what kind of housing, dining, academic, what should they even be thinking about? I think a lot of people don't even know where to start. And we did see somebody that wasn't sure, and it has been clarified, but it just kind of makes the point that some people don't even think about the fact that they might need extra testing time or extra time for assignments, things like that. So I think if maybe we can talk about some of those accommodations that people might want to consider. Again, it's based on, you know, the student themselves and what their needs are. Not everybody has the same needs, but maybe some general accommodations that maybe we could talk about. Andrea, Dr. Verma, Natalie, you've already been through this. Maybe you all can give some thoughts on that.
I'm happy to kick it off. I think when it comes to housing, a certain type of room, maybe you think you'd like a single, or your student would do better in a single just to mitigate cross contact, or maybe there's other health issues going on. Sometimes they have a private bathroom, or maybe it's in a particular dorm. That dorm houses a good dining hall that, you know, you can eat pretty reliably, or it's close to one. Maybe it's having a car on campus, or asking for certain appliances that typically aren't permitted in dorms per se. It could be being on a floor that's closer to a shared kitchen in a dorm, things like that.
So I think, involving the child is really important. Because again, there are dorms that are freshman dorms. And if you're a freshman, you want to be with a freshman. You want to be in that dorm, even if the dining hall may be far, because you want to be with your own group of people rather than be with the seniors where there might be a suite or something like that. So I think involving the patient, the child, is really important to find out what's critical for them. I do know that, many of the dorms they'll have their own refrigerators. Often you need to push for a microwave. So microwave is something you want to ask, but I'm going to ask reasonable stuff. I think that if you start asking for unreasonable things, then that your child will be the most unpopular child on that floor. And you don't want that either. I mean, you want your child to have a good college experience. So a refrigerator and a microwave, I think, is perfect as asking that there is something. I think, questions that have sometimes been asked is, should I ask specifically for a roommate? And often it's a parent who says, should you be asking for a roommate who has celiac disease or some food allergies? And you'll hear the child saying, I don't care. I want to have someone that I can connect with. So again, it goes with having a discussion. If your child will feel very uncomfortable having someone else as a roommate who has crackers all over the place that are gluten containing, then I think your clinical team needs to help you with that. But if the child says, you know what, I want the right person and I will work through with that, then I think those are the accommodations. That's what you actually do at that time. So I think from an academic standpoint, you obviously go to the school you want to go from an academic standpoint. From a dorm, I think you really want to involve your child into that. I personally would recommend that a freshman be in a freshman dorm, not be in a senior dorm, even if it's a little bit further away from wherever. The dining hall, extremely important to ask. And yes, the weekends that Andrea was suggesting. And also, what I learned when my kids were going to college was that the dining hall changes their times based on around the exam time. So they'll have 2 a.m. dining hall open. You want to know, will that 2 a.m. dining hall have pizza for me and not just a salad? Because who wants to eat a salad at 2 a.m.? I don't want to eat a salad at noon either, but that's a different story. But 2 a.m., you don't want a salad. You want something like a pizza, right, Natalie and Ainsley? That's what you want at that time. So you want to find out what is available at that time. And those are the things that you practically think. Now, let's say you didn't think about this before you started. It's okay. When it happens, you just let your clinical team know. You get to that dietitian. You have the phone number of that dietitian. She should be, or he should be, on speed dial for you. Natalie mentioned getting to know all the chefs. Very important to get to know the chefs. So speed dial the chefs. That's what I would recommend.
And I also want to note, I liked, Ainsley, when you spoke about doing your college program, you had said how the kitchen staff, sometimes I know it can be exhausting. There's a mental exhaust of the explanation of what is celiac, what you need. But as I think, Andrea, you noted, there's like an elevator pitch. You're just going to be ready. You have your 2-minute thing. you're going to say and explain, whether it's a roommate, a friend, you're heading to dinner, you know, or it's, you know, getting to know the cafeteria staff, the people actually preparing the food. Ask the questions, have your questions in mind, and then also have your explanation of, hey, I've got celiac. This is what it means. And it sounds like, Ainsley, for you, they were able to then accommodate you. Am I correct? Even though it wasn't done ahead of time, like you thought. I think flexibility is a big thing in life. You can line up all of these things and still the execution sometimes of things are not perfect. That's life, you know, that is. And Natalie, Ainsley, I'm going to have you each give. Natalie, what advice would you give to people who are really helping their kids, you know, through this process? And it could be nerve-wracking as a parent, letting go, making sure all these things are lined up. What would you say to someone who's in the thick of this right now, decision making?
I'd say do your best. I know you're trying. It's happening. Keep everything organized. I had a master spreadsheet for all of the different schools I went to, all the different information there. So how well we liked the dining halls, if we even had access to them on that day, how good the food was. Although, pro tip, they make the food better on the campus tour days, like the open days. But that's nice. You get a good scale. Um, Getting to know what people with dining accommodations are doing themselves. I was so lucky. One of my campus tour guides, who I'm now friends with, has dietary restrictions, so I was able to learn about the services directly through her. So that was great. And taking lots of photos when you're going to the campus because it's confusing. I personally, when I came back here for Accepted Students Day, I was like, I thought this was 5 different campuses. What? Okay. So that was for me. Um, I absolutely agree with checking on the microwave status for your dorm because if you would like to eat at 2 a.m. pizza, I did that last night. I don't know how you guessed that, Dr. Verma, but that was me. Exams are coming up. Uh, Check that out because that's very important to making sure that you always have food. And even if it's not your specific microwave, just make sure that you have one. Maybe it's somewhere. I don't know. It's important. And single housing is an option. It's one that I was considering when I was in the process, and I think I chose not to go that way because I knew how much that roommate experience meant to me. So if you know that you want that for yourself, just make sure you communicate with your roommate. Set an agreement if your school has dialogue open for that. And in general, just be communicative. Be like, hey, I have celiac disease. Here's the ground rules for food. And it turns out my roommate is allergic to bananas. So we're living. It's happening. But yeah, I think in general things have been going very well because I've taken these steps and because I've gotten all this advice from resources like you guys with the CDC. And yeah, just stay confident and keep going. You're going to get through this.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalie. And Ainsley, as you are in the beginning of this process, what have you learned even from your initial visits? And what do you think you'll do different when you're visiting a college after what you've experienced in like a talk like today?
I definitely think that I will try to schedule like the separate appointment with the disability office and see the dining halls. It's definitely something that was on my mind when I've done my visits, but not necessarily something that I was really on top of. I've only done a few, but this has definitely like opened my eyes to how early, we should be considering this. I also think it's important for the parents to know, I want to emphasize Dr. Verma's point of the fact that they should be listening to their kids. I know it's pretty easy to like listen to hear all these presentations and hear all these accommodations that are possible, and it's like that's perfect, like it'll solve everything for my kid, but really like listening to what they want and like the kind of the sacrifices they would be willing to make even if to have like a slightly more difficult time at school, but also like have the experience that they're looking for. That is definitely important to understand.
Awesome. Thanks, Ainsley. That was so insightful. I'm smiling because I have a senior in high school and I am in the thick of it with all of you, and it's stressful. But Andrea, from your perspective of today, I know you gave a wonderful talk, but just your last takeaway things that you want
Oh
people
my
to walk
God.
away from.
Yeah, I mean, I have to piggyback on Ainsley. I mean, that was just, and Natalie, thank you so much. I mean, so articulate. But to piggyback on Ainsley, I want to say that anything is possible, anything can be done. And if there is a place that's just the place, with everything else maybe not being as great as it can be, as long as you know exactly what's happening beforehand, so you can make those accommodations and get that support in place, so it can happen, then that's good. I think the point here is to know up front so you can make decisions based on that. And thank you, everybody.
It's awesome. And Dr. Verma, do you have any closing thoughts?
I want to make one point. I know I said that the parents should all listen to their children. I'm going to tell you the story about myself. So, children, please listen as well. So when my firstborn had celiac disease and was going to college for the first time, and she was going to NYU, and I lived in New Jersey at that time. So when we were moved, and of course she told me I had to back off and she had to do everything herself. So very much like Natalie, very organized about what she wanted to do. And we went to drop her. And of course, we could drive from New Jersey to New York at that time. So we took two cars. And you wonder why two cars? Because one car was loaded with gluten-free food. And there was bread and there was pasta and there was all sorts of things. And so one car was loaded. And of course, I didn't tell her that. She was putting stuff in one car. And we said, oh, we just need two cars. We arrived there, and of course we had all the food there, and she said okay, Mom, I have some people that I need you to meet with. So she had on her own, on the day we went there, had three chefs in those big hats sitting there and the dietitian, and she said, this is my mother. You need to reassure her that I will have all the food that I need so she can take the food out of the car. I thought she didn't know. She says, so she can take that food back because I don't need it here. So we sat, she had arranged for this whole meeting. I had to sit and listen to these chefs and the dietitian to reassure me that the food would happen. So parents have to do these things because we want our children to have everything that they would have at home. So that's why they do these crazy things and take suitcases of clothes and of food and cars full of food. So we all have to learn to live with each other, and we have to learn our idiosyncrasies to help each other. So very important that we all understand what we all need. So that's all I have to say, that we are all in it together.
Well, thank you. We are, and we have a beautiful celiac community. And I think having people like Andrea come and talk to us, and Ainsley and Natalie and Elise, who couldn't be here today, but really wanted to, it's amazing. And Lindsay, I want to thank you for putting this topic together. And do you have any final thoughts, Lindsay, yourself? You have a freshman in college as well. So
I do, and she's gluten-free as well. So we just went through this process, and I learned a lot, and it was an interesting process. And my best advice is, once you figure out the college, start communicating with them early. That's it. I mean, she picked the college she wanted, not based on the food. It was absolutely about the college itself. And we had to piece together the rest, and it can take time. It can take a little bit of time. So definitely start that process early. I think it all comes around and comes together in time, but don't try to do it the week before you start school. Definitely don't do that.
That's great advice. And I know we owe everyone some assets we've mentioned in these talks, and that includes a sample letter of diagnosis. We are going to send you our InTransit guidebook. Andrea has sent, I know, some links on for some of her key questions, but Andrea will get those from you. And Lindsay always sends a wonderful thank you to everyone who attended and registered, as well as our my dad is walking in the house and yelling. I'm so sorry. This is life, right? Where it's messy and beautiful. We are going to be sending the video YouTube link of today's recording. We will send Andrea's presentation if she is open to that, but all of her resources she's mentioned, I saw she had linked here. So we'll get those from her and some of our resources. But I thank everyone today. This was awesome. And I want to thank Ainsley and Natalie for taking the time. You guys are so insightful and just gave great advice. And Andrea, you're wonderful. And obviously have so much experience. And what I want to say is everything, any school is possible. And as Lindsay said, you just have to build in the time, I think. And we're here as a resource in the CLA community to help make that opportunities for your kids. So keep the visits up. I think it sounds like those are so important. Make your visits with the disability offices, meet with the chefs, and it's going to be a beautiful experience. We can't wait to hear about your journeys, your college experiences, but thank you all very, very much. I hope you have an awesome rest of your Saturday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.